What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to turn some pretty simple and basic ingredients into this, and that. Alright, so today I'm going to give you the framework to make literally any kind of shortcake that you want. In this video, I use raspberry, cantaloupe, and cherries. Let's start by making the cake part of the shortcake first. So the first thing I do is sift 2 cups of all-purpose flour to ensure the dough doesn't end up with clumps of dry flour. I think this is essential for this recipe, like I see it in baking recipes all the time. So followed by 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 cup or 4 tablespoons of sugar, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Mix your dry ingredients, ensure they're all incorporated, and afterwards, we take the zest from half a lemon and add it to the dry mixture. Now we're gonna take a whole stick of cold butter, which is around 1/2 cup, and cut it into smaller cubes. This makes it easy for us to get in there with our hands, cover the butter with the flour, and start squeezing the butter until the butter starts resembling a mixture of wet sand with small pebbles of butter here and there. Make sure not to work the mixture too much because we want small pockets of butter in our final dough to give the cake biscuit flakiness. Now moving on to the wet ingredients, which there are only 2 of. We start by measuring out 3/4 cup of sour cream and 1/3 cup of heavy cream. Combine until homogeneous and add it to a well of the dry ingredients. Making a well in the dry ingredients allows the liquid to stay in the center and for it to be easier to combine so that the wet ingredients don't stick to the side of the bowl, which makes just your life difficult for no reason. So just make a well in the dry ingredients. Slowly incorporate the dry ingredients with the wet ingredients while making sure not to overwork the mixture because we want there to be pockets of butter. This is kind of like making your own puff pastry without the lamination of the dough. We form the dough into a 6" by 6" uniformly thick rectangular prism and cut it into 4 quarters. Stack them on top of each other and smash. This helps create the layers in the biscuits and will help it rise in the oven. After forming it into a 7" by 5" rectangular prism, we cut the dough into 6 equal parts and set aside on a buttered baking sheet. Use parchment paper if you have it to prevent sticking. I clean up my work surface while the dough is chilling in the freezer for 10 minutes. Chilling it in the freezer will help the dough rise vertically and less horizontally. After taking it out of the freezer, I sprinkle the tops with sugar before baking in a preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for around 20 to 25 minutes or until golden brown. Now to the fruity part of this video, let's introduce the raspberries, cherries, and the cantaloupe. Beginning with the raspberry mixture, I've washed my fruit off camera, and now I'm adding 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, followed by 1 to 2 tablespoons of white sugar, depending on how sweet you want it. Mix until content and set aside. Moving on to the cherries, there's a little more work which starts with removing the stems and then removing the pits from each cherry. Basically, I just cut them in half and remove the pits with my fingers. If you guys have a better method, please let me know because this shit took way too long. Now we just do the same thing by adding a tablespoon of lemon juice and a tablespoon of sugar, mix, and set aside. Finally, onto my personal favorite, the melon. I cut it in half lengthwise, remove the seeds with a spoon, unless you like a crunchy shortcake dessert. I cut the halves into slices and run the knife along the skin underneath the flesh of the fruit to remove the skin. And then I just cut the melon into bite-sized pieces or however big you want it to be in your shortcake. Now the rest of the same procedure, add a tablespoon of lemon juice and a tablespoon of sugar and you're done. Now another key element of this dish is the super creamy, full-bodied whipped cream, which begins with 1 2/3 cups of heavy cream into an ice-cold bowl, followed by 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 3 tablespoons of white sugar, and a pinch of salt. I whip it by hand to ensure I have complete control over the consistency of the whipped cream. I like for it to be thick with 3 C's. But notice how it's still soft peaks, which is what we want. You don't want it to be stiff peaks because then the cream will be too aerated. Now we're adding the 1/4 cup of sour cream, mix to combine, and whisk until the whipped cream is thick and smooth. That looks silkier than the hair you see in shampoo commercials, and that's exactly the consistency we want. Now it's time for the fun part. we get to build our cakes like Legos. After the biscuits have rested for 10 minutes outside the oven, let's open them up. Nice. Next, I spread a generous portion of the whipped cream onto the biscuit and add the raspberry mixture, followed by the second layer of the biscuit cake and more whipped cream and fruit. The process is the same for any type of fruit that you use, as you can see here. I do the same thing with the melon, and oh my god, it looks so good. The melon was so sweet and it's just actually insane. Finally, I finish off the video by building the cherry shortcake in the same process. And essentially, with any kind of fruit, you mince it into small bite-sized pieces and you put lemon juice and sugar. A syrup will automatically form if you let it sit for like 30 minutes. And you can do this with any kind of fruit and you'll have a shortcake. And even though I'm learning how to bake and I'm a noob, this recipe was extremely simple. You really need no skills. All you have to do is mix a bunch of shit together. You mix some fruit together and you're good. Like, build it, like stack it, and you're done. Ultra easy. Highly recommend it if you want to impress some friends and if you don't know how to bake. Another thing I really like about this recipe is that it's super versatile. It can be adapted to any kind of fruit and it's not really limited to anything because you don't have to bake all of it together and assemble it neatly. All you have to do is just have the separate parts and you can literally just assemble it however you want. It doesn't have to look great, but it ends up looking good anyways because fruit and cream and cake, like, that can't look bad. So it's not a very delicate dessert, I'd say, but it's a very tasty one. So definitely try this recipe out and catch you in the next video.